Hello everybody and welcome to another top 5 board gaming video. Today's topic is all about games that don't involve points. So one of the most common mechanics that we see out there is victory points as a means of determining who is winning a game. So this will be either strict victory points where you have a track going around, it'll be coins, money at the end of the game, whoever has the most. It'll be some kind of quantifiable value of something that you have, or while other people's have less of it. And the thing is, most games have something like that, and I wanted to talk about games that don't. The thing is that there are a lot of games that don't do it, so as always I would like to hear what you guys have to say. What are your personal favorites in games that don't have some kind of victory point or other heavily quantified means of determining who wins? Let me know anything and everything in the comments below, because you know that I love to hear all about it. But that said, we are going to jump right in with my number 5. At number 5, I've got Power Grid. This is a great Euro-style game that I have loved ever since I started hobby gaming, and in the end, the point is that you have to build and power some number of houses. So it's a little bit on the border, which is why it's so low on the list, because yes, you do have to build a certain quantity of homes, but at the same time, you also need to have the resources and capability to power those homes. You can also go overboard and build more than you're supposed to in order to really super win and all that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's not strictly about having resources or having points or whatever it is. And just because you built 14 homes doesn't mean that you won, because all that means is that you built the right number. If you can't power them, then you still can't win. Power Grid, my number 5. At number 4, I've got Raptor, one of my favorite asymmetric games of all time, where one side is playing as human, the other side is playing as raptors. Now, similarly to Power Grid, this is lower on the list because it still does have a quantifiable way of determining the winner, where the raptors are trying to escape. If 3 escape, you win. The humans are trying to capture the raptors. If you capture 3, you win. And so, yes, you do have that quantification aspect, but it's not victory points. These are creatures, these are characters that you can move around on the board, and essentially you can actively get away from the people, you can actively try to run away, you can do all of this kind of stuff. And the fact is, the mechanics for this game, the asymmetry, is absolutely amazing. It's a ton of fun to play. I highly recommend it if you haven't tried it out. It's light enough to play very quickly, but it's deep enough that you can play it over and over and still have a unique time every time. So Raptor, my number 4. At number 3, I've got Santorini. That sort of rhymed, right? Well, either way, I've got Santorini. This is a great abstract game that was enormously popular when it first came out, and still rightfully is. The idea of this game is very simple. You win by getting to the top of a tower. That's all it is. In order to get to the top, you first have to go up 1, 2, and then 3 steps. And of course, the idea is that you can both block your opponent and your opponent can block you from getting into place. So you want to get into a position where you either trap your opponent or you force them into a non-winnable situation where you have 2 options of winning at the same time and stuff like that. So very chess-like and all of that sort of thing, because again, it is an abstract game. Now, in addition, you can add god powers, which add another layer of capabilities of winning, which is why it's middle of the list, because it's not strictly speaking just about, we don't necessarily have victory points, we just need to do this. But it does have other victory conditions that you can add. It adds depth to the game to an extent, but at the same time, I think it takes away from the purity of the original game and just that pure strategy of the abstractness that it has. Still a wonderful game regardless. Santorini, my number 3. At number 2, I've got Soto. It sort of worked, right? Okay, I'm gonna stop doing that. Regardless, Soto is the game of the path. The idea of this game is that you control a little block that represents a stone, and you are literally going along a path made up of tiles throughout the board. And the whole point is that you and then your opponents will be laying out tiles, and the idea is that you are trying to keep your piece on the board for as long as possible. Whoever stays on the board at the end of the game wins. And And the idea is that you can potentially be forced to fall off, you can accidentally fall off, you may have no choice but to force yourself to fall off, all of this kind of stuff. There's a lot of really fascinating strategy that goes into this, and of course it's always going to be extremely different because you've got this massive grid that you'll be placing the tiles on, and it just changes every single time so drastically. It's a ton of fun. It's a great game. Lots of wonderful strategy in this abstract game, and it's very, very pure in the sense of that's all it is. Stay on the board. That's your only instruction. So, Soto, my number 2. At number 1, I've got Star Wars Rebellion. This is obviously a huge step up in complexity from the other games I've talked about, but it is one of my favorite asymmetric games. It is very complex, it's a ton of fun, highly strategic, and absolutely incredible. Not to mention the fact that there's really no victory points. There is a tracker where you've got an Imperial marker and a Rebellion marker, and if they meet, then you have your winner and all this kind of thing. And so there's different victory conditions for either side. You've got the massive empire with their huge amount of resources trying to track down the secret rebel base, while the rebels, the rebellion, they're trying to essentially use guerrilla tactics and secret missions and all these kind of small scale attacks and things like that to earn points and the trust and will of the people in order to win the hearts and minds type of thing. And that's the idea of the game. But it's absolutely amazing. It's a ton of fun. You don't have any of the victory points, but you have huge amounts of strategy in terms of where you're going to go and win, who you're going to send, how they're going to get there. You've got negotiation as far as trying to get people back and all sorts of different things along those lines as well. Star Wars Rebellion, my number 1. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video on my top 5 favorite games that don't really involve victory points. Now, granted, I did cheat a little bit because a lot of these games have some kind of quantification in order to determine who wins, but at the same time, it's not strictly about having the most. It's about you need to do this and you need to do it well, you need to do it properly, you're able to duck, dodge, weave, and bob and all of this kind of stuff, and you have the ability to stop your opponent and to actively take and give and do all of this kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun, and it's a not completely unique concept, but it is something that you don't see too often. Far too often we see things like whoever has the most money wins, whoever has the most points wins, all of that sort of thing, which is not bad. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's nice to switch it up every once in a while. But that said, as always, let me know what you all think of this. What are your favorite games that don't involve victory points or some kind of quantification? Obviously, these are going to be a lot of abstract style games, but regardless, let me know what you all think of both the concept as well as your favorites in the comments below. And of course, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at my various social media pages where you can interact with myself and my channel in a whole bunch of really fun ways. That said, once again, if you are in an area with COVID, please stay safe, please be careful, please, if you haven't done so, go and get vaccinated if you can. But that said, thank you so very much for watching. Hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.